am a predator that they're trying to make me look a monster. I'm not a monster. I'm a normal person. I am just sick. I have an addiction. Just like an alcoholic has an addiction. Alcoholics cannot control their addiction. That's why I couldn't control my addiction. Most of the sex that went on in the house, and probably all of it, was consensual. Because there was times that they would even ask me for sex. Many times. And I learned that these girls are not virgins. They had multiple partners before me. All three of them.
Hello everybody, this is Richard Stashy from Tinker to Tales.
And me.
This is going to be a very dark episode. Before I begin, I want to stress that this is my opinion. I have notes and I'm going to try not to sound like I'm reading. It's just going to try to keep me in track on what I want to say.
Keep your thoughts together.
Yes, I needed to keep my thoughts together. Okay, to begin with, this is going to be a short summary from a portion of the book Lolita that I'm analyzing. This part of the story, Humbert, is supposed to be officially Lolita's stepfather, having married her mom, Charlotte, while she was away at camp. Basically, Charlotte died. We'll get into more details about that later. Humbert is picking Lolita up from camp to give her the bad news, sort of.
Well, that's the premise.
Yeah, that's what it starts off at. All right, so this is the summary. Humbert picks up Lolita at Camp Q. He tells her that her mother is very sick.
So he doesn't tell her she's dead.
Yes. And he pretends to drive to the hospital. Meanwhile, he takes her to the Enchanted Hunters Hotel. In the hotel, there's 2 conferences taking place, one involving clergy members and the other one's involving botanists, which is very different to the movie.
It's police officers.
Yeah, it's a police officers convention.
Okay.
In the movie. Meanwhile, he takes her
to the room.
Yeah.
It's nighttime, or it's getting late.
Humbert gives Lolita sleeping pills and takes a walk through the hotel to calm his nerves. We're just shorthanding this. As he waits for Lolita to fall asleep, he realizes that he is finally alone with her. Humbert visits the hotel porch. This is where he has a strange conversation with a mysterious man sitting in the dark. We're just going to leave it like that for the moment. Humbert returns to the room to mess around with Lolita.
Hoping that she's deeply asleep.
Yeah, he assumes that she's deeply asleep at this point. To his surprise, she wakes up easily. He spends the rest of the night making small attempts to mess around with her in the dark. We're trying to keep it a PG-13-ish. When Lolita wakes up in the morning, Humbert says that he is surprised that she seduced him, and then they did the deed. After the deed is done, Humbert envisions himself repainting the mural in the Enchanted Hunter's dining room that suits his bizarre fantasies. If you guys have the book at hand, you should check out that chapter and just keep a note on it. Then Humbert launches into a legal defense about his lecherous behavior. In an effort to justify his action, he tells the reader that he is not even Lolita's first lover. Later in the morning, Lolita tells Humbert about her first intimate encounter, which took place at Camp Q with a boy named Charlie Holmes. And strange enough as it is, where her encounterment with Charlie Holmes is kind of similar to his bizarre fantasies of the mural that he designed.
Oh yeah, the setting in which she says it takes place.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my question is Charlie Holmes Lolita's first lover, or is Charlie Holmes a projection of Humbert as himself?
Humbert references Frank LaSalle.
Yes.
Who some people speculate this entire book was what Nabokov was writing about, but
yes,
Nabokov himself has said this was not about Frank LaSalle and
Sally Horner.
He mentions the real life case in the book.
And I believe that this is kind of like a red herring in the sense, because it does fit to the theme of the story that's being told. But I also believe the important part of this is that we are dealing with a real life event with real life people in this story here. My theory, I guess I could jump on my theory now?
Yeah.
All right, my theory is that in the book, Nabokov has been known for doing anagrams and most
Wordplay.
Yes. Most famous anagram in the story is Vivian Darkbloom, which happens to be his name.
Vladimir Nabokov's name
as an anagram. And he does a lot of wordplay throughout the entire story. And I feel deep down that there's a wordplay going on here that I think a lot of people had missed, because I have not seen this anywhere. I've been desperately looking for this thing for almost a year. Since the story goes by Humbert and it keeps referring to him as H.H. throughout the course of the entire story, I find it very, very strange that Lolita's first sexual encounter...
Why you gotta say that word? Sorry.
Intimate encounter,
yeah.
First intimate encounter happens to be a boy named Charlie Holmes. Now, the odd thing is Holmes. I am connecting H.H. Holmes to Lolita. Yes, I think Humbert is inspired from H.H. Holmes. In the story of Lolita, Humbert is writing this story while he's in captivity. Part of the book has been written while he's in an asylum. The other part is in a prison.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about H.H. Holmes is that he also wrote his own story.
Confessional. His side of the story.
Yeah, his side of the story. He wrote his own book while he was in prison.
And you drew parallels between that, because in that, and I think what we read earlier, he's like, I'm writing this to give my own story about what happened, and it's against the recommendation of people who are close to me. And then he goes on to Holmes begins his story by saying, I was born in this beautiful town in New England, and it was so picturesque, and I had a lovely life and a wonderful family. And then Humbert sort of starts his story the same way. He was born in a beautiful town in Paris.
There's definitely a lot more stuff I need to unwrap about the connection between H.H. Holmes and Humbert, but I feel that this video would be like a 3-hour long video. While watching the Stanley Kubrick's version of Lolita, everyone is calling Dolores Lolita, the police convention, the Band-Aids, many others I'll be happy to talk about in another video. I had the impression that he was referencing Earl Nelson into the story, and this was one of the reasons why I wanted to read the book, because I was looking for the references to Earl Nelson, and to my surprise I bumped into H.H. Holmes. I would definitely need the Stanley Kubrick movie to show you that one, although I believe that video may take me at least 2 hours to explain. I do believe that H.H. Holmes was the most easiest one to find. And I also want to say special thanks to Dr. Strangelove for Jack the Ripper, which kind of verified my feelings about H.H. Holmes as part of the character in this story.
I think what Richard is trying to point out too is that it seems when he's trying to discuss Lolita, the story, the movie, whatever, with people, there's this kind of overall
opinion
that it's about a young girl that seduces an older man, or even if they know a little bit more, that it's about an older man who takes advantage of a young girl who is being seductive towards him. No one really thinks of it as this is a predator purposely going out to find young girls.
Yes, multiple young girls, and put them in situations where he can take advantage of them. And despite everything he's saying, these girls are
probably not willing participants in this behavior.
No. Which
And-
makes the story more of a horror story, like I've been saying before, than...
Right. Especially because when you're reading the story and you're going through it and he's saying, you know, what a minx she is here and there and with the things that she's doing that are getting to him, they're things that every little girl does, like playing marbles or, you know, hanging
Roller
out,
skating or-
like doing normal little girl things. It's not like she's, you know, walking around in a bikini doing cartwheels in front of him or anything. So I think that's what Richard's trying to say, is that the story kind of talks like she's doing these things like she's some sort of jailbait girl, but when you actually read what she's doing, it's nothing that any normal person would consider seductive behavior.
Yeah. This is why I married my wife. Okay. Anyway, please, I want to hear your comments and your thoughts. And sure enough, if you totally disagree that H.H. Holmes is a connection, I'm open for this discussion. If you want to talk about it, please talk about it very civilized. Anyway, this is Richard Stashy from the Tinker Tales.
And me.
And I do want to say thanks for watching this video. And please hit those likes and subscribe.